Hey everyone, so in this video I'm gonna walk you through a NIST CSF 2.0 gap assessment that I built to demonstrate how I approach cybersecurity risk assessments for a mid-sized SaaS company. So this is the same structure and thinking that I use for an internal readiness assessment before either an audit or when leadership wants visibility into cyber risk. The goal here isn't to explain NIST line by line, but to show how I think about governance, risk, and security maturity in a realistic environment. So I always start with an executive summary because this is realistically the only section leadership might read end to end. The focus here is on maturity, risk, and direction, not on the tools. Based on the assessment, the organization lands on a tier 1, which tells me controls exist, but they're inconsistent and not governed. That's a very common state for SaaS companies at this size. So I added a CSF core functions visual here because it anchors the entire assessment. Everything below maps back to these 6 functions. So below here, before assessing anything, I define a company context. So this is a 100 employee B2B SaaS company, cloud native, Azure based, using common tools like Microsoft Defender and LastPass. This matters because good GRC isn't about perfect controls. It's about what reasonable and defensible for the organization you're assessing. I also clearly define a scope of assumptions. And this prevents over-assessment and sets expectations. So for example, I'm not assessing secure software development here, and that's because that's intentional. This mirrors how real readiness assessments are actually scoped. So before jumping into the framework mapping, I summarize the current state in plain terms. So this is based on interviews, documentation review, and high-level technical observations. So you notice a pattern which tools exist, but processes are and governance does not exist. That gap between tooling and process is what most where the most risk lives. This section helps leadership understand why the gap exists before even talking about controls. So this is where I map the reality to the NIST CSF 2.0 gap. I use the CSF as an organization model, not a checklist. And if I open here, it's already open. So going back to the 6 CSF core functions, for example, in govern, most items are not implemented, which that tells me that cybersecurity isn't being treated as a business risk yet. And in protect and identify, you can see partial implementation, that's typical. Controls do exist, but they're not consistent or risk driven. I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just looking for repeatable in ownership. And then we just scroll down. So this is the key cybersecurity risk section. So this section translates framework gaps into actual business risk. Leadership doesn't care about control IDs. What they actually care about is about account compromise, downtime, and even third-party exposure. Everything in the roadmap ties back to these risks. And then the next section is the CSF tier assessment. So here I explicitly call out the current and the target maturity tiers. So as I mentioned earlier, the organization is currently at tier 1, and then the realistic step will be tier 2, not tier 4. It's a way big of a jump. The jumping maturity levels too fast actually creates a shelfware, which tier 2 focuses on intent, awareness, and consistency. So this will be a much better tier jump from 1 to 2. And here, so this is the improvement roadmap. So finally, this is the last section I want to focus on before closing this video out. So in this section, I translate all of this into a phased roadmap. So phase 1 focuses on governance and basic hygiene, where phase 2 builds consistency, and then phase 3 focuses on optimization. So this roadmap is designed to be achievable, not aspirational. And yeah, so overall, this assessment demonstrates how I would approach GRC work, starting with context, assessing reality, honestly, mapping to a framework, and translating gaps into actionable next steps. So the goal is always to help the organization understand risk and make better decisions, not just check boxes. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.